Shalom Israel, Most High in Christ bless. My name is Brother Zerubbabel,
My name is Ezra Elazar.
and we're with Children of Israel. We're back once again to welcome you and wish you another blessed Sabbath day. We're here once again to continue feeding the nation of Israel with the sincere milk of the Word. Last Sabbath, we started on a lesson entitled Blessed is the Man that hath a virtuous wife. We're going to continue on with that lesson and finish it up today. So this is part 2 of that lesson. So far, basically what we've been going through is to help our young men and even our older men that don't have wives to understand what kind of a woman or what kind of a person they should be, woman, of course, but that they should be looking for and what kind of qualities that they should be looking for in a wife. That's what this lesson is ultimately about, because as we said last week, the majority of our people growing up here in the U.S., what we've been taught about marriage and relationships and all of that is completely contrary to what the Bible teaches. And so a lot of our people coming into the Israelite community, they're waking up, they're coming to the understanding that they're an Israelite. They're still confused about marriage. You know what I mean? It's not something that's going to happen overnight. This is going to be a long, gradual change, and that our people are going to have to go through. But we've got to start somewhere. We've got to start with the basics of what the Bible teaches about marriage and and families and relationships. So we're going to continue this. What we've been going through is looking at the qualities that a man shouldn't want in a wife or in a in a woman in that capacity. We've been bringing out quite a few precepts. Like we said before, nothing really no different than what other camps that teach on marriage. Some of them they bring out. Some of them may not have brought out. But Lord's will, somebody will get something out of this lesson. So we're gonna maybe back up a couple of precepts that we had started on last Sabbath. And then continue the lesson from there, just to kind of rehash the end part of the lesson last week. So we're going to go back up to Sirach 25 and verses 21 through 26.
The book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 25 and verse 21. And it says, stumble not at the beauty of a woman and desire her not for pleasure. A woman, if she maintain her husband, is full of anger, impudence, and much reproach. A wicked woman abated the courage, make it a heavy countenance and a wounded heart. A woman that will not comfort her husband is distress maketh weak hands and feeble knees. Of the woman came the beginning of sin, and through her we all die. Give the water no passage, neither a wicked woman liberty to get abroad. If she go not as thou wouldest have her, cut her off from thy flesh, and give her a bill of divorce, and let her go.
So as we spoke about last Sabbath, this is one of the issues with a lot of the men in today's more modern times. And it's probably been this way, even in ancient times, that we read about in the scriptures, that men tend to look for the physical in the woman rather than the intellectual or looking at the spirit. And it's also for the women too, are in the same boat. But the scripture tells us, stumble not at the beauty of a woman. So America, that, as we've said, everything America teaches us is all about how beautiful the woman is. All the media, whether it be TV, whether it be the radio, whether it be social media, commercials, television shows, music videos, movies, all of it is predicated upon finding what society deems the most beautiful of the women, and put them up on this pedestal that have men believing that what you're supposed to be looking for is a woman that's got, you know, such and such of size or curves or eye color, eyelashes, lips. Everything is about the physical. And it says, and desire her not for pleasure. And the reason why the physical is being pushed is because not only the beauty of the woman is being pushed, but also promiscuity, that you can lay down and sleep with however many women, and even the women sleeping with however many men that they want. But the Bible tells us not to desire the woman for pleasure. But unfortunately, what you're taught growing up here is that everything is about the desire of the woman. The man getting fulfilling his desires that he wants from a woman. And that's talking about in the physical sense, going against what the Bible teaches. So obviously, there's a disconnect between the churches and what they're teaching their parishioners, because you never heard any of these scriptures in church. Your pastor is never going to pull Sirach 25 and 21 to teach a young man what kind of a woman he should be looking for. And that, number one, he should not be stumbling at the beauty of a woman, because as we read the scriptures, men have gone out of their wits end for women. Men will do just about anything for a woman. Men will, steal, kill, do just about anything for the pleasure of a woman. Okay, the next line, it says, a woman, if she maintain her husband, is full of anger. And that goes to some of our women, that, and that's the next topic we're going to be dealing with next, is dealing with the men. Right now, we're talking about the women. But there are some, there may be some instances where a man has a woman in his life. He may fall on hard times. And this is that kind of thing that the scriptures are talking about. That, number one, we'll go over that when we get to that subject dealing with the men. But a man should have a job. He should work. He should be taking care of the family. He should be the provider. But in some cases whether it be health issues, we're in captivity. Any of us could end up losing a job or a business at any moment. You just never know. So it says, a woman, if she maintain her husband, is full of anger. And that's what is pushed in America, that the woman wants everything financially from the man. But when it comes to the woman being that helpmeet and that aid for the man when he falls on hard times, that's a big no-no. Like, well, what's the saying? I could do bad by myself. They made a movie based off that. So the scriptures are warning us men about this. A woman, if she maintain her husband, is full of anger, impudence, and much reproach. So we've got to warn our men. You got to be real careful in what kind of partner you choose. Because what happens, if you get a little older, you get hurt on the job, you can't walk. What if you end up in a wheelchair, or you become bedridden and you need constant help or constant aid, a constant nurse around to to tend to your needs because you're not able to tend to yourself? What if that happened? Is your wife, your partner, gonna be the kind of person that's gonna stand by your side and be there and help you? Or is she gonna be one of those people that are full of anger, impudence, and much reproach, and just want to cast you away so she could move on with her life and be free? Because she don't want to deal with the headache. She don't want to deal with it. It would be a life setback for her, to stick around and take care of her husband. How many women will do that today? So that's what the scripture is warning us about. That make sure that when you decide to choose a woman, you better choose correctly, because if at anything in your life something happens and you're unable to take care of yourself, you're not able to be that strong provider anymore, are you going to get traded in? Are you going to be, left high and dry? Because it happens, and it happens a lot. All right. And the next line basically tells you what kind of woman the Most High thinks these are. It says a wicked woman abated the courage. So he's calling these type of women that do these things or carry themselves in this way as wicked women. A wicked woman abated the courage, maketh an heavy countenance and a wounded heart. A woman that will not comfort her husband in distress maketh weak hands and feeble knees. And that's exactly what we're talking about. When her husband is in distress, he really needs that helpmeet there. He really needs that comfort there. Is she going to be there by your side? Of the woman came the beginning of sin, and through her we all die. Give the water no passage, neither a wicked woman liberty to get abroad. And that's, we talked about this last week about not being one of those husbands that gives too much liberty to your spouse to be running the streets with her friends. You know what I mean? To be going on these um, girls' nights out or girls' vacations, without the husbands, and it's just the girls. We're going alone. That was not heard of back in the day. I can't remember ever a time that I ever heard my grandmother, ever saying, oh, we're going on a girls' night out, or we're going on a girls, cruise. We're going. It's just me and the girls. I don't remember ever hearing anything like that. Even, um, from my mom, I could never remember a time ever that she just took off and left with her friends and gone. My remembrances was that if her friends ever did call on the phone, it was like, girl, we're going to what they called it back then, the disco. And she'd be like, no, it's all right. Go have fun. I'm staying home with my kids. I'm staying home with my family, staying home with my husband, my kids. So that's very common in today's times, that, times have changed where if the man tries to put his foot down and be like, no, you're not going, now he's being called, somebody that's overbearing. Um, you're what do they call it? Oh, insecure. Oh, you're being insecure. You know what I mean? All these terms that they've come up with to try and demasculate the man, make him feel bad that, oh, you just want to control her, that kind of thing. Um, but according to the Bible, that's exactly what a husband is supposed to be doing. You're not supposed to be giving your wife that liberty to just be going out wherever she wants with her friends and and leaving you at home and leaving the kids at home so she could be off having a good time. That's not supposed to be happening. And unfortunately, that's one of the largest reasons for couples breaking up and divorces nowadays because of situations like that. Verse 26, if she go not as thou wouldest have her, cut her off from thy flesh and give her a bill of divorce and let her go. So if she's not willing to do, what the husband is asking, she's not willing to follow his counsel, follow his leadership, then he's telling you, you need to let that woman go. That's not the kind of woman you want in your life. All right. Um, so we're gonna move on. Let's go to Proverbs 7 through 27. So I think this is where we ended off last Sabbath at Proverbs 7 and 7 through 27.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 7 and verse 7. And beheld among the simple ones a I discern among the youth a young man void of understanding.
A
Right.
young man void of understanding. That's what it means to be simple. A person that's void of understanding. And he's given an account of where he saw this young man that was void of understanding. And he's going to give an account of what happened. Go ahead.
Um, Passing through the street near her corner, and he went away to her house in the twilight, in the evening, in the black and dark night. And behold, there met him a woman with the attire of a harlot and subtitle of heart.
So, an attire of an harlot and subtle of heart. So, even the Bible tells us that, yes, there is a difference in the way that a godly woman should be dressing and a woman of the streets, of what a harlot, as the scriptures call them. Nowadays, we call them, prostitutes or whatever other names they got for them nowadays. But it's all the same. From way back when, this career path or whatever you want to call it has been around for a long time that women have been involved in. And you read in the scriptures that even our forefather Judah was trying to be simple and go and pick up what he thought was a harlot, which turned out to be anything but that. But you have even camps teaching that we can go and deal with prostitutes just because they've read in the scriptures that our forefathers dealt with prostitutes. Not everything that our forefathers did was godly.
Right.
A lot of these things are put in the scriptures as a lesson to us to not follow some of the examples that they set for us. But unfortunately, there are some of our so-called leaders in Israel that will read some of this stuff and think that, well, if they did it, it was good enough for them to do, then that means we can do it too. But that's not how the Bible works. That's not how this works. We're supposed to learn from their mistakes and not make the same mistakes. Um, so we want to be aware, and yes, you're going to judge the woman based on what she's wearing. That's just a fact of life. This whole you can't judge me, I could wear what I want attitude comes from society. It's not biblical. It's not godly. We're reading what God says about it. He's telling us that there are women out there that, they dress a certain way. And if you mistake them as being a harlot, then that's on them because that's basically what they're showing, according to what the scriptures is saying. And behold, there met him a woman with the attire of an harlot and subtle of heart, talking about the way she's dressed, the way she talks, the way she walks, the way she moves, all of it. Um, Go ahead and continue on.
Verse 11. She is loud and stubborn. Her feet abide not in her house.
And that's that type of woman we, as we were talking about last week, that we see, especially nowadays, that you watch in a lot of these shows. That's loud, ratchet, cursing up a storm. They're stubborn. Nobody can tell them anything, especially their man. You can't tell me what to do. You ain't my daddy. That kind of an attitude. She is loud and stubborn. Her feet abide not in her house. These are the kind of women that we're talking about, that are the ones that are going to be quick to be like, hey, look, we're having a girls' night out. We're having a girls' vacation out. We're going to be gone for a week. We're going on a 2 week cruise, whatever the case is. These are the kind of women that the scriptures are warning us about. But in today's society, the man is being pushed into having to accept this kind of woman, this kind of behavior from the women. That it's like they have a God given right to do what they want to do and say what they want to say and be how they want to be and dress how they want when it's not biblical. All right, go ahead.
Now now is she without?
So
Now in
without
the
means outside. She's outside. She's not in her house, as it says. Her feet abide not in her house. Now is she without, meaning she's outside. Go ahead.
now in the streets, and lieth in wait at every corner.
And again, this goes back to one of the things you've probably heard us talk about before, that when you read the scriptures and you listen to a lot of the slang that we our people use, such as saying she for the streets, all this comes from the Bible. All of it does. Like Tupac would say in some of his songs, pour out a little liquor for my homies. All of this stuff all comes from the Bible. Kicking it at the crib comes from the Bible. When you go and you look at a lot of the slang that our people use and come up with, you find all these references in the Bible. That's how you know that we are the people of the book.
Mhm.
All right. And that's what the kind of woman this is talking about. Those kind of women that in today's terms, the men will be like, you know what? She for the streets. She's that kind of woman. She's loud. She's stubborn. She don't stay at home. She don't cook. She don't clean. She drink all the time. She's never sober. She smokes weed. She curses up a storm. She got an attitude problem. You never find her at home. That's the kind of woman they're talking about. Those kind of women that are for the streets. Go ahead.
So she caught him. So she caught him and kissed him, and with an impudent face said unto him, I have peace offerings with me. This day have I paid my vow. Therefore come, therefore come I forth to meet thee, diligently to seek thy face, and have found thee. I have decked my bed with coverings of tapestry, with carved works, with fine linen of Egypt. I have perfumed my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. Come, let us take our fill of love until the morning. Let us
Solus.
solace ourselves with loves. For the good man is not at home; he is gone a long journey. He hath taken a bag of money with him, and will come home at the day appointed.
So you can see here, she's trying to entice him, which you see a lot of these ladies doing today. Some are openly talking about it. Look at some of these women that openly go online now and say that um, their mission in life is to get one of these athletes to lay down with them so they could get pregnant, because that's going to be a meal ticket for them for the next 18 years. They openly talk about this stuff nowadays. That there are a lot of these women out there, what do they call them? Is it sugar babies or something like that, and sugar daddies, where some of these college girls will openly go out and sell themselves to these men as so-called paid escorts. You've got some of, a lot of these websites that you hear about, some of these women going on OnlyFans and some of this stuff that is rewarding them for this kind of behavior, where you got women becoming millionaires because of carrying themselves in this kind of manner. And it's being, you know what I mean? They're being put up on a pedestal. Back in the day, women would have been too shamefaced for anybody to even think that they, looked like a prostitute or acted like a prostitute. But now the open solicitation for prostitution is even starting to somewhat become legal. Where in some states they just completely remove the roadblock of laws that kept the women from openly being able to go out and solicit, but now they've taken it all away. So now you're starting to see it on the streets. Just women openly walking around dressed in the attire of a harlot to entice men to go and pick them up and go spend money just to lay down with them. It's embraced in society now. Whereas before, the women that did that, they was frowned upon, they were looked down upon. So this is what we have to teach our men. This is the kind of woman to stay away from, because it's going to lead you in a path that's not good. Especially a woman like her, she's got a man and she's talking about, oh, well, he's gone. Come, come in, let's go have a little fun. That brings you again to one of the lessons of the scriptures, our forefather Joseph. You can learn a lot from his situation, where the Pharaoh's wife was trying to go behind the Pharaoh's back and lay down with him. She was trying to entice him in the same way, through her looks, through her speech, trying to get him to yield to her advances. And he wouldn't do it. And then when he wouldn't do it, she lied and made up stories to try and get him killed by the Pharaoh, trying to say that he was the one that was trying to force himself on her. And you still see that kind of stuff going on today. In fact, there's was that in Florida? There's a story right now in the news where there's a school secretary that got herself fired from her job and got arrested because she kept making advances to a 16-year-old dude at the school, to the point to where he told on her and she got in trouble. And, other students saw, and heard it and saw how she was constantly flirting with this young dude, to the point to where finally the school stepped in, his parents stepped in, and, they called the cops. She got herself arrested and she got fired. Let me see if I could find that. Hold on. Yeah, here it is right here. I'm gonna now and see, and that's where you got to be careful with some of these writers, because this title is deceiving, because it says former school secretary arrested for relationship with student, which is a lie, because she never had a relationship with him. She was trying to start a relationship with him, and it backfired on her. He didn't yield. He didn't give in to it. I'm going to share the screen. Give me a second. And that's where, propaganda comes in. You got to be real careful about that, because some of these so-called writers and things like that online, just to get clicks, they'll be deceptive. Let me know when you can see it.
And there it is.
All right, hold on. Oh man, what happened? All right. Okay, so former school secretary arrested for relationship with student. After I read this, you'll understand why I'm saying you got to be careful of these deceptive titles, because they're just trying to get people to click on them. But this is who she is. So, Miami, Florida, a former school secretary at a South Florida high school has been arrested on allegations of attempting to initiate a romantic relationship with the student. So, right off the bat, the person that wrote this is telling on themselves, you just created a very deceptive title just to
Mhm.
get people to click on your story. She was attempting to initiate a romantic relationship with the student, but the title says she was in a relationship with the student. Vanessa Vigil, a former secretary of Miami Killian Senior High School, was arrested on Wednesday. According to Miami-Dade Schools Police, the victim, who worked as a student office aide, alleged that Vigil had made inappropriate advances toward him for roughly 3 weeks. The advances included soliciting his phone number, making affectionate remarks, inappropriate physical contact, and even telling him, I love you. During a September 21st incident, as the victim bent over to retrieve a dropped pencil, Vigil stood behind him and tapped his lower back with her nails, telling the student, I would have bagged you if I was in high school with you. Vigil also gave the student a dirty pizza slice keychain that was attached to her house keys and asked for his phone number. Wow. In one instance, Vigil touched the student's face with both hands, called him so handsome, and expressed her love for him. During another incident, Vigil asked the student to follow her to a storage closet in the main office where she touched his buttocks. The events left the student uncomfortable and led to a panic attack in a bath. Now, hearing that, now you got to ask yourself, what's wrong with some of these young boys nowadays, too, though?
Right.
That's kind of going overboard. Had a panic attack from a woman touching you. Like, come on, it's like there's something not right. But then that's part of the weakness that they're putting in some of these boys nowadays, that what she's doing is absolutely wrong. But I was a 16-year-old boy at one point, and myself, and I'm sure back in that day there wasn't a 16-year-old boy alive that wouldn't have liked for a 20 something 30 some year old woman to be showing you a little bit of uh, attention, in a way. Not that you would have followed through and you understand what I'm saying, and did anything about it, but to
Right.
go to this point in time, I just felt so uncomfortable. I went in the bathroom and had a panic attack. It's like, come on, man.
That's crazy. I know when I was in high school, sometimes some of these teachers would sit on some of the boys' laps.
Oh wow.
That's been going on for a very, very long time.
Yes, yeah. I never saw nothing like, not from women teachers. I saw, there was a couple of male students at my high school that had the reputation for messing around with some of the girls, but
Hmm.
you never heard any of the female students doing that. Yeah, that's crazy. But Again, the events left the student uncomfortable and led to a panic attack in the bathroom. Sound like a little something. And just reading it, it just sounds like something a girl. You would expect
Right.
that from a girl. You know what I mean? Like, okay, she rightly went in the bathroom and was scared and had a panic attack. But a boy, 16, she looks like she's a tall woman. So I'm sure she wasn't, trying to talk to no 5'3", 5'2",
Right.
16-year-old kid. So he, you know what I mean? Probably was some, 5'11", 6 foot, kid that I don't know. I have no idea what's wrong with some of these dudes, man. These kids, I don't know what's going on. It says witnesses corroborated the victim's accounts to police, and Vigil was taken into custody. While speaking with investigators, Vigil claimed that the student had been the one flirting with her, despite admitting to giving him the keychain. She was arrested on charges of battery and offenses against a student. And nowadays, you never know. He probably could have been the one that actually initiated the flirting with her. And then when she started to give into it, he probably got scared and panicked because now he didn't know what to do. But just to say and show that, this kind of stuff is going on today. And, it's older women trying to seduce these younger boys, these younger men nowadays. All right. So let's going back to Proverbs 7. Where are you at? Verse 21.
Right. Uh, with her much fair speech, she causes him to yield. With the flattering of her lips, she forces him. She forced him. He goeth after her straightway, as an ox goeth to the slaughter, or a fool to the correction of the stocks, till a dark strike through his liver, as a bird hasted to the snare, and knoweth not that it is for his life. Hearken unto me now, therefore, O ye children, and attend to the words of my mouth. Let not thine heart decline her ways, go not astray in her path. For she had cast down many wounded, yeah, many strong men have been slain by her. Her house is the way to hell, going down to the chambers of death.
And so there's the warning. He's saying, hearken unto me now, therefore, O ye children, attend to the words of my mouth. To you young men, you older men, you single men that are looking for a wife, be aware of this kind of stuff, especially nowadays, because now there are a lot more women that you're going to find that are like this more often than not now. It says, let not thine heart decline to her ways, go not astray in her paths. In other ways, stay away from the women of the streets, stay far away. For she hath cast down many wounded, yea, many strong men have been slain by her. And there are a lot of men that end up finding themselves in a lot of trouble from dealing with women like this. Her house is the way to hell, going down to the chambers of death. All right. So we're going to continue bringing out precepts showing what kind of woman the Bible teaches us to stay away from. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 2, and you're going to read verses 16 through 19.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 2, and verse 16. It says, to deliver thee from the strange woman, even from the stranger which flatteth with her words, which forsaketh the guide of her youth, and forgetteth the covenant of her God. For her house inclineth unto death, and her path unto the dead. None that go unto her return again, neither take they hold of the path of life.
So that's what these scriptures are to do. That's what these lessons are to do, to teach our young men, to deliver thee from the strange woman, even from the stranger which flattereth with her words. Now, this has twofold meaning to it. We're not focusing on the spiritual meaning behind it as far as idolatry, because this is also talking about idols, idolatry. different philosophies, different doctrines. So we're not dealing with that right now. We're talking about actual strange women, women that are not godly women. That's what these lessons are for. That's what the scriptures are for, to help our men understand what kind of women to stay from, to stay away from, to deliver us from the strange woman, even from the stranger with flatters with her words. That woman that, knows how to speak to a man, subtle, subtle of heart. She knows all the right things to say to him. A woman, if she's beautiful enough, she could talk a man out of $1 million, and it happens. It says, which forsaketh the guide of her youth and forgetteth the covenant of her God. These are women. These are some of our women that don't care anything about this Bible. They don't care about keeping the commandments of God. They've just completely let it go. They don't care about receiving the counsel of the scriptures, the counsel of a husband, the leadership and the guide of the Father Christ, her husband, and so on. It says, for her house inclineth unto death, and her paths unto the dead. It's kind of the same thing we just read in Proverbs 7. It says, none that go unto her return again, neither take they hold of the paths of life, because that's how a lot of our men end up with a bunch of baby mamas, children, born out of wedlock, ending up paying child support. All of that comes down because of what? Bad choices, bad decisions by the men, by going after the wrong type of woman, because he's looking for what? For one thing. And he's given into it. Why? Because of a lack of a counselor in his life to teach him in the right path to go, to bring out the scriptures, to teach him the counsel of the Most High on how to find a proper wife. Let's go to Proverbs 5 and 1 through 8.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 5 and verse 1. My son, attend unto my wisdom, and bow thine ears to my understanding, that thou mayest regard discretion, and that thy lips may keep knowledge. For the lips of a strange woman drop as a honeycomb, and her mouth is smoother than oil.
Her mouth is smoother than oil. In other words, she could come with you with some smooth words. Like I said, you see it all the time. You hear about all these stories that pop up in the news. Man was at the club, meets a woman. She's talking smooth to him. Hey, you want to go back to my place? He's dumb enough to take her, or maybe even her friend, thinking they're about to have a good time. He's about to have, what do they call it, the menage a trois and all this kind of stuff. And next thing you know, he pours a drink or a couple of drinks, and he doesn't realize that they've put something in his drink. Next thing he knows, he's passed out, wakes up, and all his jewelry is gone, his money is
Right.
gone. And along with all that, the women that he picked up at the bar are gone. You keep hearing these stories and reading about these stories over and over and over again. That they can, like I said, the words are smoother than oil. They can speak some smooth words. They could um I don't know, they could make the most average looking ugliest dude feel like he Drake, just to, get money out of him, just to get a meal out of him, just to get jewelry out of him. Whatever it is they desire. Say anything just to make the man feel good, and have him let his guard down. And that's what a lot of these men are doing. Why is that? Because of lack of a counselor when they were growing up to teach them about the kind of woman to stay away from. That's why a lot of these men are falling for the trap because they don't know any better. Let's go ahead and read on verse 4.
But her end is bitter as wormwood, sharp as two-edged sword. Her feet go down to death, her steps take hold on hell.
This is the third time in the last three precepts that we brought out that's saying the same thing. She leads to death, she leads to hell, messing with this kind of woman. Go ahead.
Lest thou shouldest ponder the path of life, her ways are movable that thou canst not know them. Hear me now, therefore, O ye children, and depart not from the words of my mouth. Remove thy way far from her, and come not nigh the door of her house.
Remove thy way far from her and come not nigh the door of her house. And again, this precept also is twofold, just like the previous one. Got a double meaning to it. This is also talking about idolatry, these different doctrines, these different philosophies that our people are finding themselves getting involved in. They're looked at as a woman, as a strange woman, because remember, we're married to the Most High. He's our husband. We are the bride. The church is the bride, and we, as the bride, or um, you know what I mean, end up committing adultery, and it's using the same um, type of what was the word I'm looking for? The same, the same kind of meaning that here we are committing adultery or committing fornication, going after these different doctrines, these other women. And we're being warned about this, to stay away from these different idols, to not allow ourselves to get caught up listening to these ministers, these pastors that are speaking these strange doctrines to us. All right. So that's like I said, a whole nother lesson, whole nother story. That's why you got to be, have your spiritual eyes open and spiritual ears open when you read these scriptures, because there's a lot more to them than just what's on the surface. Let's go to Sirach 25 and 16 through 23.
The book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 25 and verse 16. I had rather dwell with a lion and a dragon. Let me read that again. I had rather dwell with a lion and a dragon than to keep house with a wicked woman.
That's a heavy precept right here, because you hear the stories of some of these men that find themselves in relationships with some of these women. As the scripture said earlier, they're loud and stubborn. They love to argue. They're very argumentative. They don't want to listen to counsel from their husbands. The husband can't tell them nothing. And he's telling us, I'd rather dwell with a lion and a dragon than to keep house with the wicked woman. He's like, you know what? I'd rather live with a lion and risk getting torn apart by a lion than to live in a house with a wicked woman. I'd rather get burnt by the hot breath and fire of a fire breathing dragon and get burnt to a crisp than to live in a house with a wicked woman. Go ahead and read on.
The wickedness of a woman changes her face and darkeneth her countenance like a sackcloth.
You see, the Bible tells us how to judge a person, especially when it comes to the woman. Now he's telling, the wickedness of a woman changes her face. You can tell what a woman's thinking, what's going through her mind, by her facial expressions, especially a wicked woman. You can see when that frown comes upon her face and she's got that, do they call it the stink face nowadays or whatever they call it, where she's just looking at you with that look like of disgust. Like in reality, she's speaking all these smooth words to you, but on her face, her facial expressions are saying otherwise. That she really can't stand you, but she's gonna talk the smooth words to you to get you to lower your guard down. But really, in her mind, she's just like, "Oh, I can't stand this. Oh, can't wait to get this over with." Because this, in their mind, they're talking. They're saying all kinds of bad stuff about the man, but she can't hide who she truly is because her facial expressions gives it away. The wickedness of a woman changes her face and darkeneth her countenance like a sackcloth. Read.
Her husband shall sit among his neighbors, and when he heareth it, I can't hold on. Her husband shall sit among his neighbors, and when he heareth it, shall sigh bitterly.
He shall sigh bitterly because he's going to hear the stories from the people, around town. Like, man, can't talk to his wife at all. She'd be looking at you like like you crazy. Every time you see her, she's got this look on her face that she just so wicked and evil. Like, man, I stay away from her. You will hear the man will hear the stories of what people are saying about his wife, and he's gonna be like, man, not again. Come on, not again. Oh man, I saw her here, and yeah, you should have saw the look on her face. She was just, oh man, again. Oh yeah, I saw her at the school dropping off the kids, and man, you should have saw how she was looking. He's gonna feel some type of way knowing that this is what people are saying about his wife. Go ahead and read on.
All wickedness is but little to the wickedness of a woman. Let the portion of a sinner fall upon her.
All wickedness is but little to the wickedness of a woman. He's telling us that a wicked woman, her wickedness is so great it far exceeds any other wickedness you could think of. Any wickedness is little to the wickedness of a woman. Let the portion of a sinner fall upon her. Read on.
As the climbing of, as the climbing of a sandy way is to the feet of the aged, so is a wife full of words to a quiet man.
So imagine for a second, you got a elderly 80-year-old woman. She's walking up a big, huge sand dune. That's going to be real hard for a woman of age to do. She's going to be feeling like she's stuck in place. It's going to be difficult, out of breath, hot. Just think of the most uncomfortable feeling. Let's say she's trapped in the Sahara Desert somewhere, walking up a sand dune. Imagine that feeling. He's telling us that a wife that's full of words, that's what she is to a quiet man. So if you're a very quiet, introverted man that, you know what I mean, you very at ease, very relaxed, and he has one of those kind of wives that just want to nag, yell, scream, curse, argue, fight, his life's going to be miserable. He's going to be as a aged person trying to climb up a sandy dune. That's what it's telling us. Go ahead and read on.
Stumble not at the beauty of a woman, and desire her not for pleasure. A woman, if she maintain her husband, is full of anger, impudence, and much reproach. A wicked woman abateth the courage, maketh an heavy countenance and a wounded heart. A woman that will not comfort her husband is distressed, maketh weak hands and feeble knees.
So we had already went over Sirach 25 and 21 through 23. So we just backed up a little bit to give you a little bit more context of what was going on in this passage. All right. Let's go to Proverbs 6 and 23 through 26.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 6 and verse 23. For the commandment is a lamp, and the law is light, and reproof of instructions are the way of life.
So it's telling us the commandment is a lamp, the law is light. What is it a lamp and a light for? The commandments and the law is to light your paths for you to walk into. We don't want to be walking in darkness. We don't want to be living our lives in darkness. We want to be children of the light, not children of the dark, because that's what the Most High put us here for. Us Israelites, you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, were put here to be children of the light. The other nations are put here to be children of the dark, but not us. The commandment is supposed to be a lamp. The law is supposed to be a light to light our paths. These reproofs of instruction, this is supposed to be the way of life for us, that we're supposed to walk in it, following the footsteps of Christ, being Christ-like. And in following the laws and the commandments, walking in the straight paths, it would do something as what we're going to read in the next sentence. Go ahead and read.
To keep thee from the evil woman, from the flattery of the tongue of a strange woman.
So that's what these commandments and the law are supposed to do, to teach us how to stay away from the evil woman, from the strange woman that what? Flatters you with her tongue. So when we look at society today and we see the position that our men are in today, especially our young men in this so-called dating scene of the 21st century, and what they're going through just to date a woman. In fact, there's another video that popped up this week. I don't know if you've seen that one, where now a dude put a video up where he went to go out on a dinner date with the lady, and she showed up with her daughter. Brought the
I heard
daughter
of
to
it.
the dinner date. Yeah, you heard of that one? Yeah,
The,
showed up to the dinner date with her daughter and was trying to get a free meal out the dude for her daughter. And he was like, I'm not happening. It's like, no, this ain't happening. And as he was trying to walk out, she was following out behind him, kind of going off on him about, if you date me, you date my daughter too. And, and then when he follows her to her car, she still got her other kids sitting in the car. So, you know, just to see what these young men are having to go through in this so-called modern dating times, it's sad, it's crazy. But again, if they had someone in their lives growing up to teach them, to give them counsel as to what kind of a woman they should be looking for, it would be saving a lot of these men a lot of heartbreak, a lot of disappointment. Let's go ahead and read on verse 25.
verse 25. I'm so glad I'm not in this dating
Oh, tell me about it, man.
situation.
Yeah.
'Cause it's not even just the young. I mean, even like older guys that are like, I thought we were done with games, but they're out there 40, 50, even
Oh,
60
yeah,
with still
yeah.
games and
You
stuff.
still see it. Yeah. Some of these out there, they're my age, 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds, you know what I mean? Walking around with their pants sagging, hat
Right,
to the side, trying to look like a little 16-year-old, trying to talk to little, young women and stuff. It's crazy.
right. Verse 25. Lust not after her beauty in thine heart, neither let her take thee with her eyelids.
How many precepts have we brought out that it's been telling us the same thing? Lust not after her beauty in thine heart, meaning in your mind, neither let her take thee with her eyelids. But yet you got camps teaching that Matthew 5 and 27, when we're not supposed to lust after a woman, that they're saying that, oh, that's only talking about a single woman. It's like, no, it's not. It's telling us the same thing we're reading here in Proverbs 6 and 25. We're not supposed to be lusting after the beauty of a woman. But unfortunately, everything we're taught as young men in America, and now it's worldwide because American influence is everywhere now, that what we should be looking at first and foremost in the woman is the beauty of the woman. Everything like that. The video we were talking about last week, the lady didn't want to go into Cheesecake Factory because she thought she was so beautiful. She was too good to go in there. Look at how I'm dressed. Look at me. I'd be embarrassed to go in there. That's embarrassing. Lust not after her beauty in thine heart, neither let her take thee with her eyelids. It's funny of how many precepts you can find in the scriptures that warns us men about falling for these women that got these fake eyelashes. Actually, I'm gonna let the scripture speak because it's not us saying it, but the scriptures tells us about what kind of woman this is. You see all these ladies walking around with the fake eyelashes, the fake nails, everything is fake. Start at verse 25 again and read through verse 26, and let's see what the Lord says about this kind of woman that entices you with her eyelids. Go ahead.
It says, "Lust not after her beauty in thine heart, neither let her take thee with her eyelids. For by means of a whorish woman a man is brought to a piece of bread, and the adulteress will hunt for the precious life."
And the adulteress will hunt for the precious life. She's going to be out there hunting for that man that's got that bread, that's got that money, got that do re mi. But what is he calling that woman that's beautiful and enticing you with her eyelids? He says, for by means of a whorish woman, a man is brought to a piece of bread. It's the Most High calling these type of women whorish women. It's not us. It's the scripture. It's the Bible. And a lot of our women, they can't handle this. They can't handle the truth. We're not here to continue teaching our people lies as we've been hearing in these Christian churches. These Christian pastors are not going to read these precepts to you. They're not going to read these scriptures in church. They are not going to do it. So that lets you know that if these pastors are not willing to teach our people the truth, that lets you know that they don't care what really happens to our family units. They don't care. They could care less about how the marriage and relationships turn out, because they will not. And this is not in the Apocrypha. This is in the Bible. Proverbs 6:23 through 26. Let's go to Proverbs 9:13 through 18.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 9 and verse 13. A foolish woman is clamor. Yes, it. A
Clamorous.
foolish woman is clamorous. She is simple and knoweth nothing.
So he's telling us a foolish woman is clamorous. That goes back to that loud and stubborn woman that we read about earlier. She is simple, meaning she's void of understanding, and knoweth nothing. She don't know anything, but yet these are the same women that'll be quick to open their mouths to argue against their husband. When the husband's trying, like for instance, you are seeing this happen so much nowadays that now these fathers just fall in line and let their daughters do whatever they want. So let's say back in the day, let's say it was your grandmother, my grandmother, tried to walk out the house wearing a short skirt and a halter top. Pops is going to be like, which our grandfathers would have been like, wait a minute, where do you think you're going? Or our great grandfathers anyway, they would have been like, where do you think you're going? Out? Not dressed like that. Why? What's wrong with you? You better go and take that off, and in fact, bring it back to me so I can burn it, because you're not walking out this house looking like that. That's what they would have been told by the father, and maybe even more so than just that. But now You're seeing it so much more and more that the moment the father opens his mouth to tell the daughter, you're not walking out the house wearing that, who's the first person that comes to the daughter's defense? Saying, don't tell her what to wear. You got to give her some liberty. You can't smother her. You got to let her grow up into her own. You hear this foolishness coming from some of these women now, these mothers, and then wonder why the daughters turn out the way they do. And that's what he said. A foolish woman is clamorous. She is simple and knoweth nothing. Some of these women, they think they know better for their daughters and know better for their kids, and they will totally disregard what the husband says just so they could be on the good side of the kids, be in the good graces of their kids. And it's not supposed to be that way. Go ahead and read on.
For she sitteth at the door of her house on a seat in the high place of the city, to call passengers who go right on their ways.
And you can think about this, just think about the times in the hood that there was always that one neighbor, that one lady that was always standing in her doorway with a cigarette in her hand, calling out to everybody, always in everybody's business, loud. Everybody knew, oh, you can't tell her nothing. She will gossip and tell all your business. And you always see different men going in and out the house, and had the reputation of the neighborhood. That's what he's telling us. Stay away from this woman. Read on.
Whoso is simple, let him turn and hit her. And as for him, the wanted understanding, she saith to him, stolen waters are sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. But he knoweth not that the dead are there, and that her guests are in the depths of hell.
Again, this is what the fourth precept that we brought up, that's saying the same thing. Messing around with this kind of woman is going to lead you to death, into the depths of hell. All right. Let's go to Proverbs 21 and 9, because this goes hand in hand with one of the other precepts that we just brought out also.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 21, and verse 9. It is better to dwell in a corner of the housetop than with a brawling woman in a white house.
Why does the Most High got to keep warning us and telling us the same thing over and over and over again? Because he knows that our people will not listen. But he's telling us, remember, the Most High speaks once, he speaks twice, and our people still won't listen. It is better to dwell in a corner of the housetop, rather be up on the roof of the house hiding, than with a brawling woman in a wide house. To have that kind of loud, stubborn, contentious, angry, loud mouthed, foul mouthed woman that's going to disrupt your life. And again, this is the scriptures talking, not us. We're reading you what the Bible says. And the only way we're going to make a difference and make a change in our people is to tell you the truth, to read the truth right out of the scriptures that your pastors are not willing to do and being paid not to do. These pastors are being paid for you to not learn this. Go to verse 19, Proverbs 21 and 19, because it's saying the same thing, but in different words.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 21, and verse 19. It is better to dwell in the wilderness than with a con-
Contentious.
contentious and angry woman.
So it says now it is better to dwell in the wilderness than with the contentious and an angry woman. Think of what is that rapper's name? He keeps getting himself thrown in jail. Him and his so-called girlfriend are supposedly getting married now. I don't know why
Oh,
he would marry her. considering the relationship that they have, that they're something blue. What is that dude's name? And his so-called girlfriend is just this crazy, deranged. I don't even know what she does. I don't even know where she even how she even became famous because I barely even heard of him. But apparently, they're known and they're constantly fighting. Let me see if I can
I mean,
find it. Give me a second. Is his name Blueface? That what
hmm
it is? Blueface, baby mama. Let me see. Yeah, that is his name, Blueface. And what is her name? That's it, Christian. Christian something. What is it? Oh, that's her name, Christian Rocks. Christian Rocks. When you read the stories about it, they seem like they're always popping up in the news. And you see about their relationship and how volatile it is. And in most of the cases, she's the one that be initiating it. If somebody had taught him better, he would know to stay away from this kind of woman. But now he's gone to extremes to where now supposedly, I guess recently they just got engaged or something. And it's just like, what are you thinking? That this is a situation that's, as the scriptures are telling it, is gonna lead to death. Something drastic is gonna happen to one of the two of them. Um, See, again, I wish we could play these videos. I know it was a video that had popped up some months ago where they were literally on the street having a street fight in the middle, the middle, everybody just, let me see. All right, videos of Blueface and Baby Mama street fight. See, it's on YouTube, man. All right, here's one on TMZ. I'll just click on it and see. Let me share the screen first and see if it'll actually play. Probably won't get sound.
there it is.
All right. Can you actually see it?
Yeah, see it yet.
This is on TMZ. Where'd he go? Oh, here it is. And see, look at that. She's the one initiating it.
Hmm
See, somebody should be stepping in and trying to tell him, like, dude, what are you thinking? Why would you marry this girl? Why would you want this for your life? What kind of life is this? Look at her. She just punched him in the face. And now he's fighting back and hitting her back. And now, Look at them. See, and the one thing he shouldn't be hitting her back. He's big enough that he could just, could have just held her down and controlled her instead of swinging back and trying to have a full on street fight with her. It's crazy. And then who was the, that's what I want. Who was this that was walking behind them filming it instead of
Paparazzi.
breaking it up, calling the police? You're just walking behind them filming it all. See, it looks like they're trying to intervene and say something. Look at them. See, he just punched her again. Now, this dude right here, I have no respect for these men standing here with their cameras out.
Right,
Because the moment I would have saw that dude punch her in the face, I would have been all over him, taking him down. And if I would have had to, choke him out. See, now he's stepping in, but he's going after her instead of the dude. So he looks like he's scared of the dude and going after her, even though she is the one initiating. But that's not the moment he swung back and threw that. It looked like it was an uppercut, looked like a Tyson uppercut up against the ropes.
right.
That dude shouldn't ever even let it get that far. He should have been intervening already. Now, who is this? One of their bodyguards or something? Or is it just somebody walking by? Yeah, it looks like this is one of the bodyguards. He should have been stepping in already. But this is what Proverbs 21 and 9 and 21 and 19 is talking about. It's better to dwell in the corner of the housetop than with a brawling woman in a white house. Why would you marry this? Why would you do that? It makes no sense. You guys are either gonna end up divorced in within 5 years, or somebody's gonna end up dead. Proverbs 21 and 19 again.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 21 and verse 19. It says, it is better to dwell in the wilderness than with a contentious and angry
Contentious.
woman.
It is better to dwell in the wilderness than with the contentious and an angry woman. It's like, why would you want that for your life? Why would you want to be in a relationship and deal with that? It's crazy. But that's what our young men are being groomed to think, that this is love. That crazy angry love. Um, it's sad. It's scary. Let's go to Proverbs 11 and 22.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 11 and verse 22. As a jewel of gold in a swine's snout, so is a fair woman which is without discretion.
So is a fair woman which is without discretion, because just like our young men, our young women lack discretion. They lack the ability to make wise decisions. Let's go to Proverbs 23 and 27 through 28.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 23 and verse 27. For a whore is a deep ditch, and a strange woman is a narrow pit. She also lieth in wait as for a prey, and increaseth the transgression among men.
So for a whore is a deep ditch. You see, it's the scriptures that constantly is using this word as a description of this type of woman, the WHORE word. So don't get mad at us for the use of the word. the scripture speaking.
Right.
All right. We're not the ones that are going out on the streets, calling our women's HOEs and B's and stuff like that. But we are going to read you straight from the scriptures what the scripture says. So it says, for a whore is a deep ditch, and a strange woman is a narrow pit, because that's where she's going to lead you. You're going to fall into that ditch. You're going to fall into that deep pit. You're going to find yourself in the depths of hell living with this kind of woman. You're never going to be at peace. There's never going to be peace in the house. It's going to be a constant battle, especially looking at those two, the video we were just watching. That's very indicative of what kind of relationships these young kids are dealing with nowadays. And then you wonder why you keep reading these stories and hearing these stories about these women suddenly being murdered by their boyfriends. Not that the men have any reason to be putting their hands on their woman, but in the midst of that heated exchange, like we just watched, you never know what could happen. All it takes is one punch, one toss to the ground, a body slam to the ground, and she hit her head. You punched her too hard,
Right.
and you could cause somebody to die. You could cause death. A shove, and she trips backwards and hit her head on the sink. That's why it's better to not even allow yourself to even be in one of those kind of relationships. Because there are a lot more women nowadays that are like this Christian rock woman than not. A lot of these young girls are growing up like that because they had no father figure in the home. They grew up around, in the hood, being around, the gang bangers, the gang members, where in order for you to get reputation, you had to be hard. And now the girls got to be just as hard as the boys. You see a lot of the girls going and doing drive-by shootings and things like that just as much as the boys are. Let's go to Proverbs 27 and 15 through 16.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 27 and verse 15. A continual dropping in a very rainy day and a contagious, can't say that,
Contentious,
say it again.
contentious, contentious.
Thank you. Contentious women are alike. Whosoever hideth her hidden the wind, and her ointment of his right hand, which bewrayeth itself.
So it says a continual dropping in a very rainy day and a contentious woman are alike. It's making the comparison. It's saying a woman is just like those raindrops that are a contentious woman is just like that heavy rain. That rain is just pouring down on your head and there's nothing you can do about it. You can't stop it. You can't run from it. You can't hide from it.
No.
That's what it's like every day in your house. You can't run from it. You can't hide from her. You just got to sit there and deal with it. And next thing you know, you're soaking wet just like on a rainy day. The rain just drenches you. And that's what her words will do. That's what her fists are going to do, like this Christian rock woman. Whosoever hideth her, hideth the wind, because some of these men are going to be embarrassed. They're going to try and hide the fact that their woman is like this. But at some point, especially if you're around godly men that know the scriptures, they're going to see it. They're like, there's something right. There's something not right about that dude's woman. There's something not right about his wife. She's a demon. She's hiding something. It's going to become apparent to the people around you. Like, you know what? She seemed like she likes to argue all the time. Just
Right.
listen to the things she says. She seemed like she will go off and curse him out in a heartbeat and slap him upside the head in a heartbeat. If you're around people that know the scriptures, they will be able to see the signs. They'll be able to point it out. But whosoever hideth her hideth the wind, and the ointment of his right hand which bewrayeth itself. Let's go to Proverbs 30 and 18 through 23. These scriptures are, this book is real. And it would behoove you, don't be offended by what we're reading,
Right.
because some people are going to hear some of these precepts, especially some of our women. And guess what's going to happen? They're going to get filled with pride. They're going to let pride enter in, and they're not going to want to listen. But there is a lesson to be learned, especially from our men. For our women, if you want a husband, what does that tell you? Don't be this kind of woman. You want a man of God, a godly husband, and you are this kind of woman, then change, repent. It's not hard to do. Learn to stop being so argumentative. Learn to stop being so combative. Stop being that kind of brawling, loud, obnoxious, you know, cursing, yelling, screaming type of woman. Learn to be a gentle woman that is going to be a helpmeet for the man and bring peace to his life. And again, you men that are out there looking for the proper type of wife, be aware and be careful of choosing this Christian Rock. I can't remember, I think that's how you pronounce her name. These Christian Rocks type of women. Stay away from them. But go ahead and read what you got.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 30 and verse 18. There be three things which are too wonderful for me, yeah, four which I know not. The way of an eagle in the air, the way of a serpent upon a rock, the way of a ship in the midst of the sea, and and the way of a man with a maid. Such is the way of an adulterous woman. She eateth and wipeth her mouth and saith, I have done no wickedness.
Now, we know some of our men that teach, on marriage and things like this. Some of them love pulling this scripture. It says, such is the way of an adulterous woman. She eateth and wipeth her mouth and saith, I have done no wickedness. All right, we're not going to get into the grotesqueness of what some of the, some of our brothers, like to really go in on this. Not going to do it, but you get the gist of it. But it's telling you what kind of a woman this is. Stay away from that type of adulterous woman that will be quick to go and cheat on her man. And you see it so much nowadays. I didn't do nothing wrong. He ain't never home. You see these women get caught cheating on their boyfriends and their husbands. And a lot of these videos that get posted on YouTube. And the first thing that always comes out of their mouth is the same thing. Well, you're always at work. I ain't do nothing wrong. You should have been here. And some of them are just bold and will just flat out tell the dude that. You ain't never around, so what you expect me to do? Again, it's telling you, stay away from that kind of woman. The red flags are there when you meet her. The thing is, a lot of our men choose to ignore the red flags, to disregard the warnings. All right, let's go ahead and read on.
Verse 21. For three things the earth is disquieted, and for four which I cannot bear. For a servant when he reigneth, and a fool when he is filled with meat. For an odious woman when she is married, and an handmaid that is her to her mistress.
Actually, and a handmaid that is heir to her mistress.
Mhm.
All right, let's go to Ecclesiastes 7 and 26 through 28.
The book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 7 and verse 26. And I find more bitter than death the woman whose heart is snares and nets, and her hands as bands, whose pleaseth God shall escape from her, but the sinner shall be taken by her.
So listen close to what he's telling us. And I find more bitter than death the woman whose heart is snares and nets, and her hands as bands. Whoso pleaseth God shall escape from her. So the way to escape this kind of woman, keep God's commandment and do those things that are pleasing in the eyes of the Most High. But it says, but the sinner shall be taken by her. Look at this blue faced guy. He's been taken by this kind of woman to the point to where after all of this, you've given her a couple of kids. Now you want to marry her after everything they've done, all this brawling and fighting and everything getting cursed out by her. And it hasn't stopped because there's always something in the news about these two. He hasn't escaped her because he hasn't himself hasn't been doing the things that are pleasing to the Most High. And how do you know? Because look at the way he carries himself. And we're gonna talk about that next when we start talking about the kind of man the women should be looking for. See, we said we're gonna be balanced. We're not just gonna get on the women. This is just the start. Next week we're gonna go in on the men. What kind of man should the woman be looking for? And what kind of man should the women be staying away from? We're going to do the exact same thing we did for the men. So women, don't get offended. Don't think that we're being, because I know I see some of the comments when some of our brothers be teaching. And sometimes I agree with you. Sometimes they do go overboard with some of their comments and some of the things they say. And sometimes in a lot of ways it is unbalanced. You see some of these camps, some of these leaders, where they're constantly going in and bashing on the women, bashing on the women, the women, the woman, the woman, the woman, the woman, the woman. And sometimes you go like, you know what, man, what about the men? Because some of you men are wicked and evil too. So don't forget, be balanced. Isn't that what the scriptures tell us? But sometimes our people forget and they love to show respect of persons to the men. So like I said, we're not gonna be unbalanced. We're gonna the same type of lesson we're doing right now for the men and what kind of woman to look for and what kind of woman not to look for. We're gonna do the same thing for the women. What kind of man should you be looking for and what kind of man should you not be looking for? So stay tuned for that next Sabbath. All right. So let's go ahead and go on. Go ahead and read on.
Verse 26. And I find more bitter than death the woman whose heart is snares and nets, and her hands as bands, whose pleaseth God shall escape from her, but the sinner shall be taken by her. Behold, this have I found, saith the preacher, counting one by one to find out the count, which yet my soul seeketh, but I find not. One man among 1,000 have I found, but a woman among all those have I not found.
All right, let's go to Sirach chapter 9 and verses 1 through 9.
The book of no, it's the rock. Second, the book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 9 and verse 1. Be not jealous over the wife of thy bosom, and teach her not an evil lesson against thyself. Give not thy soul unto a woman to set her foot upon thy substance. Meet not with an harlot, lest thou fall into her snares. Use not much the company of a woman that is a singer, lest thou be taken with her attempts. Gaze not on a maid, that thou fall not by those things that are precious in her. Give not thy soul unto harlots, that thou lose not thine inheritance. Look not round about thee in the streets of the city, neither wander thou in the solitary places thereof. Turn away thine eye from a beautiful woman, and look not upon another's beauty. For many have been deceived by the beauty of a woman, for herewith love is kindled as a fire. Sit not at all with another man's wife, nor sit down with her in thine arms, and spend not thy money with her at the wine, lest thine heart incline unto her, and so through thy desire thou fall into destruction.
So there's a whole lot that was just said in these 9 precepts. A whole lot. So we got to go through it one by one because our young men need to know this. They need to learn and understand this. That if they're looking for a virtuous wife, you're not going to find it dealing with the kind of woman that it's telling you to stay away from here and carrying yourself in a way other than what it's telling you to do. So in verse 1, it says, "Be not jealous over the wife of thy bosom." Because there are a lot of men out there that they do hold a lot of jealousy inside when it comes to their wives. But nowadays, a lot of women exploit that. You're just very jealous. He's just very controlling. He won't let me do anything. He's just very insecure. You hear these things. But the scripture tells, be not jealous over the wife of thy bosom. Men are not supposed to be that way. The Most High expects us not to be that way. So if you are one of those men who are actually carrying on in that way, I'm not talking about what we were talking about earlier, where the woman is accusing the man of being that way to get herself out of trouble for the things she did. We're talking about the woman who's legitly in a relationship where she's like, you know what? He's so jealous. If I even just look in the direction of a guy, he just goes off and just yells at me and curses me out. You know what I mean? Those kind of men. She walks through the door 5 minutes late from work and he's all over. Where you been? Where was you at? What took you so long to get home? That's what we're talking about. Be not jealous over the wife of thy bosom. And you men should not be that way. That overzealous, over jealous, overbearing husband. Says, and teach her not an evil lesson against thyself, because there are some men that they do that kind of stuff just to be vindictive to the woman. They will plot all kinds of evil, against her. I don't know what kind of pleasure they get out of it, but you will see this kind of stuff from men. It says, give not thy soul unto a woman to set her foot upon thy substance. Be careful. Be aware of what kind of woman you open yourself up to, because she wants to get a foot upon your stuff. She wants to get a hold of what you got. Don't go pouring your soul into, some woman you just met, not knowing that what she really wants is to get into your pocketbook. She wants to get into your bank account. We could go all the way back to the 80s and look at what happened with Tyson and Robin Givens. Her mama was even involved in it. Why? Because they wanted to get their hands on his substance. They wanted to get their hands on his paychecks, on his homes, on his cars. They wanted to get as much out of him as they possibly could. And then in the end, what did she do? Turned around and said he abused her, said he had mental problems, made him look like a fool on national TV, and then turned around and filed for divorce and tried to make him look like uh, the world's worst man, you know what I mean? Which he was no saint. We everybody knows, the history of Tyson and all that, but he found his match. He found a wicked woman that was just as wicked as he was. So again, a lot of these men, you could go back and look at recent history, like the Tysons, the Evander Holyfields. A lot of these men, these so-called superstar athletes, the Magic Johnsons, if somebody had taught him better to stay away from these kind of women, to stay faithful to your wife, he would have never contracted HIV. That's if he actually even ever had it.
Right.
Because it boggles my mind. It's like, how did Tommy Morrison end up dying? Even though it took him a while, but he ended up finally dying from it. So how did Tommy Morrison get completely decimated by HIV, but Magic Johnson is still here? And you gotta wonder, did he ever really actually have it, or does he actually even have it? That question is up for debate. But if he does have it, if he ever did contract it, he would have saved himself a whole lot of years of heartache and pain if somebody had taught him the laws of God, to stay away from these kind of women and stay faithful to your wife. And you won't have to worry about falling into a snare, falling into a trap, and being led by these certain types of women to death. Because that's ultimately what he ended up with, is a death sentence when he contracted the HIV from one of these women. If it was even a woman, looking at how his son turned out, and looking at, some of the stories coming out now about some of these NBA players and how they be going both ways, some of them. So you got to ask yourself the question, was it even a woman that gave it to him? Looking at, have you seen Magic Johnson's son, the one that cross dresses? I can't remember what his name is.
Mhm.
Like a big 6'2", 6'3" dude walking around wearing dresses and makeup,
Yeah.
being a transvestite or a cross dresser, whatever he's trying to be. But looking at how his son turned out makes you question. And just listening to some of the stories from back in the day. In fact, there's a ex NBA player right now who's dealing with that. I guess some transvestite that he was messing around with is coming out and spilling his secrets. And now he's, in the media looking crazy, because nobody would have never known that, oh, wait a minute, this dude be messing with other men. And not only just other men, with transvestites. Like, you would have never guessed. You would think he was just the ultimate, manly NBA player. And it goes that way with a lot of them. Says, meet not with an harlot, lest thou fall into her snares. Here's another warning about dealing with these harlots. Use, and this is a heavy one here, verse 4, use not much the company of a woman that is a singer, lest thou be taken with her attempts. Some people look at the book of Enoch,
Mhm.
and they try and say, oh, see, it teaches you about mermaids and all this kind of stuff. It's not talking about mermaids. It's not talking about that. I don't want to get into that right now, because it
Right.
goes into a whole other topic, seriously, that some of our brothers just don't understand, that what it's actually talking about is talking about these kind of women right here that didn't want to keep the commandments of God, and the curse was put on them, especially some of these singers like the Beyoncés,
Mhm.
that they can put you in a trap and a snare with their voice. Have these men going crazy over them. Use not much the company of a woman that is a singer, lest thou be taken with her attempts. But that's a whole nother lesson also, because it was never about mermaids. The mermaid thing didn't come up until the Greeks got a hold of our um, our books and started basically trying to add their Greek mythology into our scriptures. That's where that came from. It had the scripture, the book itself was never talking about no mermaids. That was Esau putting his interpretation on it. And now you have some of our men today running around talking about, oh, see, the book of Enoch talking, it teaches about mermaids. And let's say mermaids, are talked about in the book. What would be so different about the Bible talking about a woman who was a half woman and half her body was a fish, when you have descriptions of angels in the Bible that talks about they had four faces on them? One
Right.
face was the face of a man, one face was the face of a lion, one face was the face of a, you know what I mean, had wings on their backs. You know what I'm saying? The feet, or the legs or feet of hooves, like a animal. So why would that be? You know what I'm saying? It's crazy. They will read stuff like this in the scriptures and then turn around and act like something like that would be too far fetched. But again, I don't want to. I'm trying not to go too much into that. But again, we're being warned about these kind of women to be aware of. Look at like the Whitney Houstons. You see, everybody tried to blame Bobby Brown for the downfall of Whitney Houston, and now the truth is actually coming out. She was a wicked woman before he even ever met her. She was already a drug addict before she ever even met Bobby Brown. She was already in a spiraling downfall before he ever met her. She was this kind of woman, that loud, obnoxious, brawling, argumentative woman that nobody could tell anything. She knew what was best for her. She wouldn't take counsel from anyone. And you see where it led to her death, unfortunately. But Bobby Brown, some of these other men that found themselves involved with her could have saved themselves a whole lot of trouble, a whole lot of heartache. The Mariah Careys, and you could go on and on. The Janet Jacksons, the Madonnas. Look at how many men Madonna has been with. And you still have men still walking around bragging about, oh, yeah, I was with Madonna. Like, why would you even want to brag about that? Why?
Mm-hmm.
Use not much the company of a woman that is a singer, lest thou be taken with her attempts. Even Tupac fell for the attempts of Madonna. It's Rosie Perez is the one that tells the story that she was it was at some music awards show, and Madonna was sitting in back of her, and Madonna saw Tupac and tapped Rosie on her shoulder and was like, "Hook me up, hook me up." And Tupac was dumb enough to fall for it. And that's natural with a lot of our young men. They're young at the time, handsome. They're well known. They're famous, and they have a bunch of women suddenly wanted to talk to them, and they don't know how to handle it because nobody's taught them. So next, verse 5 says, "Gaze not on a maid, that thou fall not by those things that are precious in her." Again, telling us don't stumble at the beauty of a woman. Stop looking on the outside. You better pay attention to what's on the inside, because those things inside of her that she finds to be precious is not so precious. Give not thy soul unto harlots, that thou lose not thine inheritance. Because some of our men, they'll go broke. Being at the strip club, making it rain, dealing with prostitutes, and then next thing they know, they're having all kind of money problems. Says, look not around about thee in the streets of the city, neither wander thou in the solitary place thereof. Stay out the streets, young men. Those women you're going to find out there in the streets, leave them there because they're for the streets. If you're really looking for a virtuous woman, you're not going to find it out there in the streets. Better go to the library. Better go, you know what I mean? Start looking inside of your Israelite community somewhere. Again, turn away thine eye from a beautiful woman and look not upon another's beauty. For many have been deceived by the beauty of a woman. For herewith love is kindled as a fire. Over and over in today's society, look at how many of these men are getting caught up dealing with these women. They're very beautiful on the outside, and on the inside, they're wicked demons. More often than not nowadays, the virtuous woman is very far and few between. There's it's very few of them in today's society now. Going to be real hard for you to find that virtuous woman. And then number 9, sit not at all with another man's wife, nor sit down with her in thine arms, and spend not thy money with her at the wine, lest thine heart incline unto her, and so through thy desire thou fall into destruction. You see this a lot among men. They don't find it, wrong. How would I put it? You see it in the workplace, because in today's society, men and women are, working together, and in the corporations. And next thing you know, they're going out to lunch and hanging out. And this woman's married. She's got a husband at home. She's got no business going out to lunch unless it's a legit business thing where, what, let's, meet up for, we got to talk about logistics. But in reality, you don't need to go out to lunch for that. I'll meet you at the office. I'll come into your place of business. We'll sit down like any normal transaction. Go into your office. I'll come to the office, sit down. We'll discuss it there. I've never understood that, we'll meet up for lunch, or, we'll meet up for dinner. We'll go over the logistics and we'll have a few drinks. There's no reason for that. She's a married woman. She's got no business sitting down, going to lunch, going to dinner with no other man. And the Bible tells us this: sit not at all with another man's wife. And you see but that's not frowned on in today's society. That a man could be all up in another man's wife's face. It's like every time the man turns around, this person's always up in his wife's face all the time. And it could be in the workplace, it could be a coworker, and a lot of times it could be in friendships. The man might have a woman, the friend, in some cases they even have a woman or not have a woman, and the dude is always up in his friend's wife's face all the time. Every time he turn around, he's like, man, like, why every time I turn around, you're always trying to be sitting alone talking to my wife? Like, what's up with this?
Right.
You see this stuff all the time in today's society. Says, nor sit down with her in thine arms, because then you have, she may have a problem at home with her husband. Now she's coming and bringing her problems to this guy, and now he's being that comforter, putting his arms around her. Oh, it's all right. I got you. Just tell me what the problem is. My ears are open. No, we're not supposed to be doing that. And spend not thy money with her at the wine. No, you're not supposed to be meeting some other man's woman for drinks, no matter what the situation is, business transaction or not. Oh, we're just gonna, meet up for some drinks. We'll discuss it, especially among some of these occupations where, either the husband or the wife got to travel a lot and they're out of town a lot. And, they go out of town and they're hanging out at the bars or hanging out at, the clubs and stuff like that. That's not supposed to be happening. What's wrong with sitting at your hotel room or whatever, and with today's technology you can stay with your wife on the phone all night on
Yeah.
FaceTime talking. So a lot of the stuff that goes on nowadays could be avoided if people would just use the right mind. Because what ends up happening, the scriptures are telling us, lest thine heart incline unto her, and so through thy desire thou fall into destruction. At some point in time, you're going to start catching feelings for this woman. This woman is going to start catching feelings for this man. And the next thing you know, you're going to have situation where somebody's committing adultery, somebody's committing fornication, and it's going to lead to a path of destruction. Because if she's married or if he's married or they're both are married, it's going to lead to the downfall of a whole lot of people's lives. Husbands, wives, kids, all going to be involved. Families are going to get destroyed. So through thy desire, thou fall into destruction. The man gives into his desire. Next thing he knows, the wife finds out, he's getting a divorce. She's taking the kids. He's getting hit up for alimony and child support. And you know what I mean? And it's just a domino effect from there. Let's say he doesn't make that much money. Now he's falling behind on child support. Now he has to worry about, especially here in our state, losing their driver's license, getting arrested, going to jail for not paying child support. And the domino effect just keeps going. That's that destruction. So the scriptures clearly continuously warn us men about how we're supposed to be conducting ourselves and what kind of woman to look for, what kind of woman to stay away from, what kind of situations to keep ourselves out of. But again, you will never hear this in the church. The pastor in the church is not going to pull Sirach 9 and 1 through 9 to teach our young men that it's wrong to be going out and hanging out with another man's wife. They're not going to do it. You'll be shocked to hear them even go to Exodus 20 and teach them, thou shalt not commit adultery, because you won't even hear them pull that in church.
Mhm.
All right. So now with this next one, to really get the context of what's going on, we actually got it. I was going to have you start at verse 13. We're going to go to First Esdras chapter 4. I'll read verses 1 through 12, and then have you read from verse 13. Because in order to get the full understanding of what's going on, we got to read the whole thing, unfortunately. Let me get
All
there. Let me
right.
go to First Esdras chapter 4. I'm going to start at verse 1. Actually, it does start at chapter 3. Let me see. Yeah. See, it's a lot of read. We'll read it because in order to fully understand what's going on in 13 through 41 and what Zerubbabel is trying to teach us about women, you've got to get a full understanding. So I'll read all of First Ezra 3,
All right.
and then I'll have you just read chapter 4. How's that? All
Sounds
right.
good.
So here we go. So this is the book. We're going to the book of First Esdras. Um, let me go ahead and. So I wasn't planning on reading all of it, but we might as well. And you can see the same thing going on again. Watching the count, you can see people jumping in and jumping out. Like, oh, what are they talking about? Oh, here's some precepts. Get offended. They hurry up and jump out of here real quick. Like, oh,
Right.
all right. So this is the book of First Ezra, chapter 3, in verse 1. It says, "Now, when Darius reigned, he made a great feast unto all his subjects and unto all his household and unto all the princes of Media and Persia." So Darius was a leader of the Persian Medes when the Persian Medes took control over everything. They had the dominion at one point. All right. So this is talking about one of the kings named Darius. It says, "Unto all the governors and captains and lieutenants that are under him from India unto Ethiopia, of 127 provinces. And when they had eaten and drunken and being satisfied, were gone home, when Darius the king went into his bedchamber and slept, and soon after awaked. Then 3 young men that were of the guard that kept the king's body spake one to another." So basically, what is going on is that Darius, he had a feast. They were, as they would do, have a nice feast, food, drinking, just having a party, having a good time. And so after he had, gone to bed and everything like that, then you had 3 of his bodyguards. That's what it means. The 3 young men that were of the guard that kept the king's body spake one to another. They were the bodyguards of the king. And these were Israelites that he had watching him, watching over him, because our people were what? They were in captivity. And so now you're going to see what happens. So it says, "Then 3 young men that were of the guard that kept the king's body spake one to another, Let every one of us speak a sentence. He that shall overcome, and whose sentence shall seem wiser than the others, unto him shall the king Darius give great gifts and great things in token of victory." So they kind of like making a bet. Let's see which one of us are the wisest. We're going to write down, something of wisdom, and we're going to see which one, is the wisest, and whoever wins, the king is going to reward him with, a lot of precious stuff. That's what's going on. They're making this bet. And then it says the things that he's going to give, they outline, verse 6, "As to be clothed in purple, to drink in gold, and to sleep upon gold, and a chariot with bridles of gold, and a head tire of fine linen, and a chain about his." You see, that's why our people still love chains. You
Mm-hmm.
read about this in the scripture. It was our people, so-called blacks and Hispanics, that walked around and loved having them gold chains on, even way back then. So that was going to be what they would receive if they were the ones that win. It says, "And he shall sit next to Darius because of his wisdom, and shall be called Darius' cousin, and be called Darius as his cousin." And then everyone wrote his sentence, sealed it, and laid it under King Darius's pillow. So, they wrote down what they wanted. They put, this thing of putting them in some envelopes and sealing them and putting them under his pillow. And, when he wakes up in the morning and he reads what they wrote, they're going to see which one of their sayings is the wisest. Going to verse 9, it says, "And said that when the king is risen, Some will give him the writings, and of whose side the king and the three princes of Persia shall judge, that his sentence is the wisest, to him shall the victory be given as was appointed. So then it tells us what they wrote. Verse 10, the first wrote, wine is the strongest. The second wrote, the king is strongest. The third wrote, women are strongest. But above all things, truth beareth away the victory. So now we're going to read about what happened when the king woke up. He read what they wrote and going to listen to the wisdom of what these men wrote down. Okay, so now verse 13. First Ezra chapter 3, verse 13. Now, when the king was risen up, they took their writings and delivered them unto him. And so he read them. And sending forth, he called all the princes of Persia and Media, and the governors, and the captains, and the lieutenants, and the chief officers, and sat him down in the royal seat of judgment. And the writings were read before them. Verse 16. And he said, call the young men, and they shall declare their own sentences. So they were called and came. And so like, you know what, call these young men up and let them explain what they mean by what they wrote. Verse 17. And he said unto them, declare unto us your mind concerning the writing. So he's like, you know what? Clarify to us what you were thinking when you wrote this. Then began the first, who had spoken of the strength of wine. And he said thus, O ye men, how exceeding strong is wine! It causeth all men to err that drink it. It maketh the mind of the king and of the fatherless child to be all one, of the bondman and of the freeman, of the poor man and of the rich. It turneth also every thought into jollity and mirth, so that a man remembereth neither sorrow nor debt. And it maketh every heart rich, so that a man remembereth neither king nor governor. And it maketh to speak all things by talents. And when they are in their cups, they forget their love, both to friends and brethren, and a little after draw out swords. So he's telling like, well, you know, when men get drunk and they got them cups in their hands, they forget about everything. In fact, it makes them want to fight somebody. Verse 23, but when they are from the wine, they remember not what they have done. O ye men, is not wine the strongest that enforceth to do thus? And when he had so spoken, he held his peace. So he's talking about how strong wine is. How wine is such a strong influence, or alcohol is such a strong influence over men, that it could cause you to do things under its influence that you normally wouldn't do. So again, giving us that warning about wine. So now let's go to First Ezra chapter 4. I'll read verses 1 through 12.
All right.
So First Ezra chapter 4 and verse 1. And it reads, then the second that had spoken of the strength of the king began to say, O ye men, do not men excel in strength that bear rule over sea and land and all things in them? But yet the king is more mighty, for he is Lord of all these things, and hath dominion over them. And whatsoever he commanded them, they do. If he bid them make war, the one against the other, they do it. If he send them out against the enemies, they go and break down mountains, walls, and towers. They slay and are slain, and transgress not the king's commandment. If they get the victory, they bring all to the king, as well the spoil as all things else. So he's telling you, you know what? The king's got control over his men. They're in subjection to him. In fact, if he tells them to fight each other, they'll go out to battle and fight each other. If he tells them to go to war and fight the enemy, they go to war and fight the enemy. They are, they killed and they are killed. And they don't break the king's commandment. They don't talk back. They don't transgress. Whatever the king tells them to do, they do it. And after they went and fought in the battle, they won. Everything that they take from the other nations, they bring it back and give it to the king. So now in verse 6, it says, likewise, for those that are no soldiers and have not to do with wars, but use husbandry. Now it's talking about, these are just simple farmers. These are not soldiers. Now he's going to talk about them. When they have reaped again that which they had sown, they bring it to the king and compel one another to pay tribute unto the king. And yet he is but one man. If he command to kill, they kill. If he command to spare, they spare. If he command to smite, they smite. If he command to make desolate, they make desolate. If he command to build, they build. If he command to cut down, they cut down. If he command to plant, they plant. And these keep watch round about him. Neither may any neither may anyone depart and do his own business, neither disobey they him in anything. O ye men, how should not the king be mightiest, when in such sort he is obeyed, and he held his tongue? So the second one talked about how mighty and powerful the king is. The first one talked about how mighty and powerful wine is. So now we're going to get to the third one. So let's see what he talks about. This is what we're actually getting to, what the third one is talking about, which has to do with warning our men about how they deal with women. Go ahead and read. So you're going to take over verses 13 through 41. Might stop you here and there throughout it. All
The
right, go
book
ahead.
of First Ezra chapter 4 and verse 13. Then the third, who had spoken of woman and of the truth, this was Zerubbabel, began to speak.
So this is Zerubbabel. He was a bodyguard of the king, and you read about him in the scriptures also. When they made their return from captivity and were allowed to go back into the land. He was one of the ones that was instrumental in the rebuilding of the temple. You could read about him in the scriptures. Go ahead though.
Verse 14. O ye men, it is not the great king, nor the multitude of men, neither is it wine that excelleth. Who is it then that ruleth them, or had the lordship over them? Are they not women?
It says, are they not women? Are they not women? Isn't it women that has control over these men, that rules over these men? Go ahead and read.
Women have borne the king and all the people that bear rule by sea and land. Even of them came they, and they nourished them up that planted the vineyards, from whence the wine cometh.
So he's saying, you guys are wrong because it's the women that gave birth to the kings and to all the people and all the men that bear rule by sea and land. These are the ones that go to war, they fight wars, they conquer, but all of them were born of a woman. And then even of them, of women he's talking about, they nourished up the very men that we're just reading about. These husbandry, these men of husbandry, meaning these farmers, it was a woman that gave birth to them. These men that planted the vineyards that made the wine,
Right.
because he said wine was strongest. All right, so let's go ahead, go on, verse 17.
These also make garments for men.
These
The-
also made garments for men, going back to what? That virtuous woman that worketh with her hands that we read about last Sabbath. Go ahead.
These bring glory unto men, and without woman cannot men be.
These bring glory unto men. Talking about a virtuous woman that makes garments for men, that works with their hands, they're going to bring glory unto men. It says, and without women cannot men be. So without a woman giving birth to the men wouldn't be. And you hear some of our brothers all the time, always, without the seed, the woman's womb don't mean nothing. Like you got to have both. Without the
Mhm.
woman being able to accept that seed, we wouldn't be here. All right, go ahead and read on.
Yeah, it says, yeah, and if men have gathered together gold and silver, or any other goodly thing, do they not love a woman which is comely in favor and beauty?
So he's saying, if you could get all the gold, the silver, any goodly thing. It's like, do they not love a woman which is comely in favor and in beauty? So he's like, you see how much a man loves gold, how much he loves that silver. When he meets a woman that's a beauty, he loves her just as much as he would love that gold and silver. Go ahead, read on.
And letting all those things go, do they not gape and even with open mouth fix their eyes fast on her? And have not all men more desire unto her than unto silver or gold
No, go ahead. Or
or
any goodly thing.
any goodly thing whatsoever?
I'm sorry about that. So, but he's saying that, do men not desire a beautiful woman more than gold, more than silver, or more than any other thing in this earth? Some of these rich men, look at them. They could have the Ferraris, they could have the Lamborghinis, they could have the mansions and all of that. But what's the thing that they really go crazy about is the women. The women. They fall more in love than with these women more than any material possession that they could afford to buy themselves. Go ahead and read.
A man leaveth his own father that brought him up, and his own country, and cleave unto his wife.
So a man will leave his family, leave his father. He'll even move from one country to another country, and that's something that's becoming common nowadays. They call them the passport brothers that you're reading about. There's a lot of men online who are leaving the U.S. and going to other countries to find wives. That's what it's a man, and this is in the Bible. So people that are trying to make fun of these men or women that are trying to talk down about these men that are doing that, they're not doing anything wrong because the scriptures talks about it, which we're reading about right now. A man leaveth his own father that brought him up in his own country and cleaveth unto his wife. So don't be surprised and shocked that some of these men are willing to get up and move to another country so they can find them a virtuous wife. That's how precious a virtuous wife is when a man finds her. If you can't find it here in the US and you find it somewhere else in some other country, God's not going to hold it against you for getting up and moving and saying, you know what? These women here are too wicked, but this woman over here, that's over here in this, as long as she's an Israelite wife,
Right.
let me make that clear.
Right.
But he's not going to get on you for getting up and leaving and going to, and create a union with that woman because she's going to bring you happiness. There's nothing wrong with it. So leave them passport brothers alone. Now, if it's, these men that are just going over there just to go party, have a good time, drink, and meet up with all kind of harlots, in the land, then that's different.
Right.
The Most High is not down with that. All right. So let's go ahead and read on verse 21.
He sticketh not to spend his life with his wife, and remembereth neither father nor mother nor country.
So he sticketh not. It's like he don't care about sticking around to spend his life in that same place, to go spend his life with his wife. He sticketh not to spend his life with his wife. He's not sticking around so that he could go be happy with his wife. He's going to move. He's going to be as far away from his family and all those other people so that he could go live a happy life with his wife. And he don't remember his father, he don't remember his mother, nor his country. He forgets about everything to go spend that time and be with his wife. Go
Mhm.
ahead and read.
By this also ye must know that women have dominion over you. Do ye not labor and toil and give and bring all to the woman?
So he's saying by this, by what we're reading about, you know that it's women that have dominion over you. They're the ones that got control over you. Do you not go to work all these hard hours, put all your blood, sweat, and tears into work to do what? To go home and give everything you've earned to your woman, to your wife. That's what he says. Do you not labor and toil and give and bring all to the woman? Because that's what the man is supposed to do. Yea. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead and read on. I'm getting ready to read it. Go ahead and read on.
Yeah, a man taketh his sword and goeth his way to rob and to steal, to sail upon the sea and upon rivers, and looketh
Don't you
upon
see
a
that
light.
happening today? Instead of taking the sword, these dumb young men, they'll grab a gun in a heartbeat and go out and rob and steal just to get money or to get precious stuff to bring back to a woman that they're seeing. It's crazy what these young dudes will do just for, just to be able to impress a woman nowadays,
Mhm.
just so they can have money to take a woman out, go sell drugs, go rob, steal, kill even, just so they could get money, so they could bring it and go and oppress a woman. Look at the young dudes that killed that XXX Tentacion. They shot and killed this guy just so they could get money, so they could be online flexing with the money. Who are they trying to impress with that money? Women.
Mhm.
Isn't that the only reason they're going to be online flexing the money, so they can impress who? Women. So the women could think, oh, they got money. They were willing to kill this guy just to take his money so they could be online flexing it so that they could impress some women. Go ahead and read.
And looketh upon a lion, and goeth in the darkness, and when he had stolen, spoiled, and robbed, he bringeth it to his love.
Exactly what we were just talking about. After he done stolen, he done spoiled, he done robbed and killed and done what he had to do, he bringeth everything he stole and everything he gained to his love, his woman. Go ahead.
Wherefore a man love his wife better than father or mother.
So father and mothers of the world out there, don't take it personal when your sons find a wife and he's happy and he loves his wife more than he loves you, because that's what the scripture says. That's what the man's supposed to do. He's supposed to leave father and mother and cleave unto his wife. Wherefore a man loveth his wife better than father or mother. Go ahead.
Yeah, many there be that have run out of their wits for women.
And that's what I was talking about earlier. He says, yea, many there be that have run out of their wits for women. There are some of these men out there that have gone straight up out of their minds for women. They've gone crazy. Some men, there are men that have ended up in mental institutions
Mhm.
over women because of, they can't get over their lust of women, that they make themselves go crazy. Go ahead.
And become servants for their sake.
And become servants for their sakes. They become slaves to these women. Go ahead.
Many also have perished, have erred in sin for women.
You got to read that one again. You got to put some emphasis on this one.
Many also have perished, have erred in sin for women.
Listen to this. Many also have perished. Look at how many of our young men die in the streets, have erred and sinned for women. It's still going on to this day that a lot of our young men out there are perishing in these streets. And the majority of the time, it's over a woman. They're in error. They're doing a lot of this um, robbing and stealing and killing. And a lot of the times, it all comes back to they're doing it over a woman. Go ahead and read on.
And now do ye not believe me? Is not the king great in his power? Do not all regions fear to touch him? Yet did I see him and and
Apame,
Apame, the king's concubine, the daughter of the admirable Bartaktakus,
Barticus. So the
Barticus,
daughter of the admirable Barticus.
sitting at the right hand of the king, and taking the crown from the king's head and setting it upon her own head, she also struck the king with her left hand. And yet, for all this, the king gaped and gazed upon her with open mouth. If she laughed upon him, he laughed also. But if she took any displeasure at him, the king was fain to flatter that she might be reconciled to him again.
So what he's talking about is the woman could get away with doing stuff to the king that a man wouldn't be able to do. Number one, a man wouldn't be able to come over and sit upon the king's lap, number one,
Right.
and be sitting there and taking the crown off the king's head and laughing and joking and putting the crown on his own head. A man wouldn't be able to get away with that. But a woman, especially a beautiful woman, the king is so enamored with her, he's just sitting back, letting her do whatever she wants. As it says, when she laughed, he laughed, as he want to make sure she's having a good time with him. If she looked like she was a little upset about something, the king would notice and make sure that he said or did whatever he needed to get her back, to get back in her good graces. So he's saying that this woman has a lot of influence. All right, go ahead and read on.
O, o ye men, how can it be but women should be strong, seeing they do thus? Then the king and the princes looked one upon another, so he began to speak of the truth.
So they're all looking at each other like, you know what? He's telling the truth. Yeah, he's got something. He's got something here. So now he's going to start talking about the truth. Go ahead.
O ye men, are not women strong? Great is the earth, high is the heaven, swift is the sun in his course. For he compasseth the heavens round about, and fetcheth his course again to his own place in one day. Is he not great that maketh these things? Therefore great is the truth, and stronger than all things.
So now he's talking about Christ here. Is he not great that maketh these things? Is Christ is the one that create? He made the heavens and the earth. Christ is the one that created all of this. Is he not great that maketh these things? Therefore, great is the truth. Who's the truth? Isn't Christ the one that says, I am the way, the truth, and the life?
Mhm.
He's talking about Christ right here. Go ahead and read.
All the earth calleth up upon the truth on the truth. All the
All
earth calleth upon the truth. I'm sorry.
crieth upon the truth. It says, all the earth crieth upon the truth.
Crieth, and mine says calleth.
Does it? Mine says crieth. That's crazy.
Um, and the heaven blessed it, all works shake and tremble at it, and with it is no unrighteous thing. Wine is wicked, the king is wicked, women are wicked, all the children and men are wicked, and such are all their wicked wicked works, and there is no truth in them. In their unrighteousness also they shall perish.
So he says, all the earth crieth upon the truth, and the heaven blesseth it. All work shake and tremble at it, and with it is no unrighteous thing. Wine is wicked, the king is wicked, women are wicked, all the children of men are wicked, and such are all their wicked works, and there is no truth in them. In their unrighteousness also they shall perish. So he's letting us know it ain't none of us on this earth that are truly 100% righteous. The
Right.
only one is the truth, which is Christ. And this was way before Christ even ended up on the earth, way before the New Testament, way before Christ ever even what was put into Mary, not put into, was conceived by Joseph and Mary. So he was already talking about Christ. Go ahead, though.
As for the truth, it endureth and is always strong. It liveth and conquereth for evermore. With her, there is no accepting of person or rewards, but she doth the thing that are just, and retaineth from all unjust and wicked things, and all men do well like of her works. Neither in her judgment is any unrighteous, and she is the strength, kingdom, power, and majesty of all ages. Blessed be the God of truth. And with that, he held his peace, and all the people then shouted and said, great is truth and mighty above all things.
All right. So you can see that, Zerubbabel, he gave some wise counsel about women. You're not going to hear about this in your Christian church. They're not going to pull these scriptures. They just will not do it. All right. So in the scriptures, you're going to read about um, certain virtuous women in the scriptures, and you'll read about some of the wicked women in the scriptures. Just to name a few, you had Naamah, who was Noah's wife. She was considered a virtuous woman of the scriptures. Sarai or Sarah, who was Abraham's wife. You could read about her in the scriptures. She was a virtuous woman. Even Ruth, who was not an Israelite, but even she was called a virtue. Actually, grab that in Ruth chapter 1 and verse 11. Even she was called a virtuous woman.
Mhm. Okay. The book of Ruth, chapter 1 and verse 11. And Naomi said, turn again, my daughter. Why will ye go with me? Are these yet any more sons in my womb, that they may be your husbands?
Where were you at?
Ruth 1 and 11,
No, Ruth 3 and 1. I mean, Ruth 3 and 11.
3 and 11. Okay, sorry. The book of Ruth, chapter 3 and verse 11. And now, my daughter, fear not. I will do to thee all that thou requirest, for all the city of my people doth know that thou art a virtuous woman.
So even Ruth, who was a heathen from another nation, was called a virtuous woman in the scriptures because of the way she conducted herself, the way she carried herself. And she did some great things for our people. Um, Let me see. In fact, without her, King David, King Solomon, none of them, they wouldn't even existed if it wasn't for Ruth. All right. And then you can read about some of the wicked women of the scriptures, like Eve, Miriam. Oh, and Queen Vashti. Yeah, you know the story about Queen Vashti, and read about Jezebel. So there are some women of the scriptures that are some examples of wicked women in the scriptures. All right, let's go to the book of Isaiah, chapter 3. You're gonna go to verses 16 through 24.
Okay. The book of Isaiah, chapter 3, and verse 16. Moreover, the Lord said, because the daughters of Zion are haughty and walk with stretched forth necks and wanton eyes, walking in
Walking and mincing as they go.
right, walking and mincing as they go, and making a tinkling with their feet. Therefore, the Lord will smite with a scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion, and the Lord will discover their secret parts. In that day, the Lord will take away the bravery of their uh, tinkling or ornaments about their feet, and their cowls and their round tires like the moon, the chains and the bracelets and the mufflers, the bonnets and the ornaments of the legs and the headbands and the tablets and the earrings, the rings and nose jewels, the changeable suits of apparel and the mantles and the wimples and the crisping pins, the glasses and the fine linen and the hoods and the veils. And it shall come to pass that instead of sweet smell, there shall be stink. Instead of a girdle, rent, and instead of a well set hair, baldness. And instead of a stomacher, a, a girded of sackcloth and burning instead of beauty.
So a lot of the things that our women are going through today, as far as how they're being exploited by some of these Asian companies in spending a lot of their hard-earned money on fake eyelashes, on wigs, all of this is a curse, a direct reflection of their haughtiness and them turning away from the laws and commandments of the Most High. And what we're seeing happening to our women today is a direct punishment for them turning away from the laws of God and acting the way that they do. That's what we're reading here in Isaiah 3 and 16. It says, moreover, the Lord saith, because the daughters of Zion are haughty and walk with stretched forth necks and wanton eyes, walking and mincing as they go and making a tinkling with their feet.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about the attitudes of our women. The way they carry themselves is no different than the way they started carrying themselves back then. It says, therefore, the Lord will smite with the scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion. That's why a lot of our women are going bald nowadays, because of it's a punishment from God. You wonder why our women are out there spending all this money on because they want to have long hair like the white woman. Well, guess what? Back in the day, before the Most High struck our women with this curse, they had long, beautiful hair. Don't believe it? Go read about our foremothers in the scriptures. They weren't having to go buy wigs. They weren't having to go get what do you call it? What do they call those things? What is it?
Extension.
Yeah, the extensions, the hair weave. There you go. The extensions, the hair weave. They weren't having to do that. But nowadays, our women are spending their hard-earned money, and the other nations are exploiting it because trust, the Chinese people know your history. They know who you are, and they know exactly you're going to be wanting to spend a whole lot of money on buying their products. These Koreans, that are owning these hair supply stores, and our women going in there spending hundreds of dollars, even thousands of dollars, I guess, depending on the kind of style and the length of hair that you want, can cost anywhere from hundreds of dollars to thousands of dollars. And why is this happening? Because the Lord have smitten our women this with the scab on the crown of their head. That's why it says, therefore, the Lord will smite with the scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion, and the Lord will discover their secret parts. It says, in that day, the Lord will take away the bravery of their tinkling ornaments about their feet, and their calls and their round tires like the moon, the chains and the bracelets and the mufflers, the bonnets and the ornaments of the legs, and the headbands and the tablets and the earrings, the rings and nose jewels, because our women wore the same kind of stuff back in the day. There's nothing new under the sun. What you see our women wearing with the nose rings in their ears and the chain, the bracelets on their arms and the bracelets on their ankles, and none of this is new. Our women been wearing this stuff for forever. It says the changeable suits of apparel, meaning our women always loved dressing nice. They always had a lot of different changes of clothing. That's why nothing's different. Our women have not changed. Our women still love going to the nicer stores and buying the nice clothes, nice uh, outfits and clothes and things. Our women have not changed. Our women have always been like this. It says, in the mantles and the wimples and the crisping pins, the glasses and fine linen, the hoods and the veils. Our women always like to look nice, to dress nice, to have nice jewelry, have their hair done up, to look nice and presentable for their men. It's nothing new. But the Lord says, because of the haughtiness of our women, though, in verse 24, and it shall come to pass that instead of sweet smell, there shall be stink. Instead of a sweet smell, there shall be stink. Talking about that our women, something was going to happen to them, that they weren't going to have that nice, clean, sweet smell that our women used to have back in the day. That there was going to come a time that you're going to find, it's going to be odorous. And why is that? Is because of their promiscuity, not taking care of themselves, putting things in places that they shouldn't, that shouldn't be going in there. I mean, realistically, really think about that. Was the woman's private parts made to have latex? That's a very, very what's the word I'm looking for? Um, Biohazardous type of material, I guess. I can't think of the right word to use.
Right.
But it wasn't made to go inside of a person's body. But somehow, some way, our enemies have tricked our people into thinking that, as long as you wear a condom, you won't get pregnant, but not telling you what kind of damage is happening by putting this latex into your body, especially the ones with these, what they call the spermicidal chemicals. Putting that chemical inside of your body, they're not telling you what that chemical is doing to your body and what kind of cancers that might be causing.
Mm-hmm.
And women have not taken the time to step back and wonder, like, wait a minute, what kind of damage are we doing to our bodies by putting these foreign objects in there? And not just the condoms, but think about the what's the politically correct way to say it, the sex toys that some of these women are using. The body was not made to put this plastic, this what do you call rubbery substances, these this latex substances into your body. Even excuse me, the things that they make nowadays for the woman's menstrual cycle. There are some that warn that some of these things are not good for the woman to be putting inside their body. What do they call them? The tampons, and it's got plastic on them. You know what I mean? So now, if they're telling you that it's not good for you to be drinking out of a plastic bottle, drink water out of a plastic bottle because of certain elements that are getting into the water from the plastic of the bottle, what makes anybody think that putting a plastic substance into their body is any different? That's not gonna cause you to, you know what I mean, get some kind of foreign substances into your bloodstream or into your body from putting it in there. But that's what he's telling us. That it shall come to pass that instead of sweet smell, there shall be stink, and instead of a girdle, a rent, and instead of well set hair, baldness. So when we're saying these things, is not us coming from us, it's coming from the Bible because the Bible has taught us this. But our people don't read it, so they don't get it. You were warned that this was going to happen to our people, to our women. But what happened? Our people just said, I don't want to hear that book. And now we're seeing this come to pass, that our women are out here spending their hard earned money on trying to put fake hair on their hair because they can't figure out why their hair is going bald. Like, why is this happening? Well, God warned you already. He had told you he was going to do this to you. That if you didn't listen to him, that if you didn't keep his commandments, that he was going to cause you to have baldness on your head instead of a well set of hair. So if you want that change, what do you got to do? You got to change. You got to repent. And maybe you would get blessed with that well set of hair. Makes sense, right? But our women are so prideful, they're so haughty, they don't want to listen. And we're trying to come at you with it in the most respectful way that we can. Like I said, I'm not trying to be like some of these other brothers that teach about these things and they just go so way out there in their descriptions, you know what I mean, to the point to where they just get very disrespectful
Right.
in how they bring it about. But our women need to learn the truth that these things are happening because God said he was going to cause it to happen because of your haughtiness. He says that instead of a stomach or a girding of sackcloth and burning instead of beauty, burning instead of beauty, because our women had always been known to be the most beautiful women in the world. But the Most High said, because of the way you act, because of your attitude, he's going to take all that away. And instead of our women looking and wanting to know the truth so that they can repent, they'd rather just cuss the man out that's trying to help you, that's trying to teach you the truth and bring the scriptures to you. Let's go to Sirach 26 and 5 through 9.
book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 26 and verse 5. And it said, there be three things that my heart feareth, and for the fourth I was sore afraid. The slander of a city, the gathering together of an unruly multitude, and a false accusation. All these are worse than death.
So think about what he's saying. He said, there be three things that mine heart feareth. There's three things on this earth that he fears. Says, and for the fourth, I was sore afraid. So he tells us what these three things are: the slander of a city, the gathering together of an unruly multitude. Because when we see our people gathering together like this, or like they do, we're not supposed to partake in that stuff. But unfortunately, these young kids today are thinking it's cool to come together in these big mobs and go and loot and rob and steal and break into stores and cause damage. And we're not supposed to be acting that way. But there is nobody standing up and bringing. Well, there are some Israelite groups that have gone out. I've watched videos of certain groups going out and teaching while these riots are going on, and they're trying to tell, like, look, you're not supposed to be doing this. This is not the way God expects you to care. And they're cursed out, yelled at, threatened. You see this stuff. But he's saying the gathering together of an unruly multitude and a false accusation, because you see the false accusations flying everywhere nowadays. It says all these are worse than death. Go ahead and read on.
But a grief of heart and sorrow is a woman that is jealous over another woman,
He says,
and
but
a
a grief of heart and sorrow is a woman that is jealous over another woman. Stay clear of that kind of woman. The woman that could have envy and jealousy of another woman, and you're going to know who she is because she's not going to hold back in what she says about another woman. Oh man, I can't stand that. You know what? She get on my last of my everlasting nerve, last nerve. Can't stand her. They're going to talk just like that about her. You will know who she is. It's not there's no way you're not going to be able to discern who this woman is that he's talking about. It says, but a grief of heart and sorrow is a woman that is jealous over another woman. Read.
and a scourge of the tongue which communicated with all. An evil wife is a yoke shaken to and fro.
An evil wife is a yoke shaken to and fro. So men, find you a virtuous wife and stay away from that evil woman. Stay away from that evil wife. Go ahead.
He that hath hold of her is as though he held a scorpion.
He that hath hold of her is as though he held a scorpion. So a man that has an evil wife, you might as well be holding a scorpion in your hand, is what he's telling you. Because that's what he's making that comparison. That's what an evil wife is to a man. Go ahead.
A drunken woman and
A gatherer abroad.
a gatherer abroad causeth great anger, and she will not cover her own shame.
A drunken woman and a gatherer abroad causeth great anger, and she will not cover her own shame. Men, he's telling you, stay away from that drunk, loud, crazy woman that likes to be hanging out in the clubs, hanging out in the bars, hanging out in the streets. She's a gatherer abroad. What is she going to do? She's going to cause you great anger because you're going to be trying to tell her, look, why are you always hanging out in the streets? Why are you always getting drunk? Stop drinking. And what is she going to want to do? She's going to want to argue. She's going to want to come back at you. You can't tell me what to do. You ain't my daddy. I could do what I want to do. In fact, that I've just popped in my head the in the movie Purple Rain with Prince when he had picked up Apollonia on the motorcycle, and she was with Morris Day, and she had the bottle of whiskey or whatever it was in her hand, and she was drunk, and he was like, like, hey, what you drinking that for? He's like, you can't tell me what to do. You're not my father. And he walked up and slapped the bottle out her hand. If you haven't seen Purple Rain, watch the movie. I don't know of anybody that didn't grow up in my time that haven't seen it, but if you're a younger from the younger generation, you haven't seen it, go and watch it. I mean, it tells a good story about the family dynamics of our people, of the husband and the husband that's domineering and always at the wife always nagging at the husband, and they're always battling and fighting at each other. And then you got the son caught up in the middle of it, and the effect it's having on the son and his relationship. There is a good story behind it. If people were just enamored about Prince being in the movie and he's got a beautiful woman in the movie, you got to look beyond that and see what's really going on in the movie. What is the real substance in the movie? And that's telling the story about the family dynamics of this young man growing up with this father who was an abuser and trying to keep control over his household because his woman, from what the father, but then again, that goes to don't be a jealous husband. Anytime she stepped out the house, he was accusing her of what's wrong with this house? What are you doing? Why are you always out of the house? Why do I come home and the house is not clean? Just at
Right.
her. And she was at him. And they, arguing and fighting up until the point to where, he tried to commit suicide. And that's where, the first time I saw them when I was a kid when that movie came out, I think I was only like maybe 11 years old, 10, 11 years old when that movie came out. So it took a lot of years and many times of watching the movie to really understand what was really going on, where he ended up committing suicide. And even to this day, I still can't figure out which one of them was, more wrong or more in the right, because it seems like they both were in the wrong to a point, because she obviously had to been doing something to him also for him to want to be out of that situation where he wanted to kill himself. So obviously the mother is an innocent angel in the situation. So like I said, go and watch it. But he says a drunken woman and a gatherer abroad causes great anger. So she obviously was doing something to cause that much anger in her husband. So you had two people just like that, Blueface and Christian, whatever her name is. Both of them out of their minds, both of them out of the spirit, and bringing them together brings something that's not good. And it says, and she will not cover her own shame. Go ahead and read the last line, or did you read it already?
Verse 9. The whoredom of a woman may be known in her haughty looks and eyelids.
So again, we're reading the same thing again. The whoredom of a woman may be known in her haughty looks and eyelids. So, men, when you meet that woman, don't be afraid to judge her by what she's wearing and about what she's bringing to the table. The fake eyelashes, the fake hair, the fake breasts, the fake, what do they call, Brazilian butt lifts, and all this stuff these women are getting. Don't be afraid to judge her by that and say, you know what, that's not the kind of woman I want. There's nothing wrong with you, doing that, because she's doing it to you. She's looking at what you're wearing. She's looking at how you see the double standard in to the modern dating. It's okay for the woman to look at the man and check him out If he's not wearing the most expensive suit, not wearing the most expensive shoes, not carrying a bag of money, not driving the nice car, it's okay for her to judge him based on what he looks like and what he's wearing and what he's got. But when the man does it to the woman, then there's a big problem. We got to stop this double standards in our communities and get our men and women back on one accord and on one page in how to go about courting each other. And the only thing that's going to teach us that is the scriptures.
Mhm.
There is no other book. You can't look at Steve Harvey. Everybody was looking at Steve Harvey like he was the end all be all as far as giving marital advice to our people. His books, what is it? Act like a man, think like a man, act like what is it? Think like a man, act like a woman. I can't remember the title of that book.
Okay.
I can't remember. How does it go?
I know it.
Act like a man, think like a woman, or is it act like a woman, think like a some? I can't remember how the title. It's something crazy like that. I can't remember what the title of that book is, but it's something crazy like that. But everybody was looking at Steve Harvey and his relationship with his wife as if they were the end all be all to relationships. They had the perfect union, the perfect relationship. He had the perfect advice for all the women and all the men on marriage and everything. And look at what's happened within the last few months. His whole life is being thrown into shambles. That's why if they're not coming with you with the to you with the word of God, why would you even listen to them? We've been listening to men for far too long. It's time for us to try something new. Men, if you want a virtuous wife, read the scriptures. Go back and watch this video and write down these precepts and go and read them for yourself and figure out what kind of woman it is that you should be looking for. And then next Sabbath, we're going to be going over the kind of man the women should be looking for. And men, if you want to be the kind of man that a virtuous woman is wanting, is desiring, if you want to be that kind of man, watch the lesson next week because we're going to be going over a lot of precepts dealing with the man and the way the man should be carrying himself, the kind of man the woman should be looking for in a husband. Now we know what kind of woman the man should be looking for. Now it's time for us to bring you the kind of man you women should be looking for because society has also taught you wrong as to what kind of man you should be looking for. All right, we'll leave that for next Sabbath. Let's go to the book of Philippians, chapter 4, verses 4 through 8.
The book of Philippians, chapter 4, and you said verse 4?
Oh, yeah, verses 4 through 8.
Verse 4, rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say, rejoice. Let your moderation be known unto all men. The Lord is at hand. Be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. And the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue and if there be any praise, think on these things.
And let's go to Ecclesiastes 12 and 13 through 14.
The book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 12 and verse 13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil.
And with that, we're going to say shalom, most high in Christ blessed. Enjoy the rest of the Sabbath as usual, and we will see you next Sabbath. Shalom.